Good evening, Savita. Good evening. Good evening. Okay, so today we're gonna discuss. So as we are covering the important topics in the ecology. So if you quickly recall, in the last class, we have completed the habitat and niche. So now I'm gonna cover the another important topic from this particular ecology, that is the ecological succession. So friends, the concept of ecological succession will be useful for the part B also, as well as friends, the ecological succession will be useful for the part C also. There is no doubt about it. So mostly I think more than 3 times the question was appeared from this ecological succession, and 3 times we got the question from the part C only. It's a very easy concept. Good evening Akshay, good evening Gautam, good evening Deepika. It's a easy concept, but what I want to say is that I want you people to remember more concepts actually. Okay, now let's start. Okay, so friends, before starting this particular concept, I am saying to all of you, this ecological succession is a pure theory based. You people no need to use your brain. Here you are not going to get any analytical question, any graphical or experimental, but there is a chance that you can expect the diagrammatic based questions. And in this particular chapter, you people has to remember more important concepts. More important concept in terms of theory. You don't need to understand the concepts. The more you remember, the more easily you can answer the question. Okay, let's start. Ecological succession. So friends, in a simple word, how can we define the word succession? All of you listen. How can you define the word succession? In a simple way, I can tell you succession is a gradual replacement. Gradual replacement of what? Gradual replacement of one community with the another community. That is what exactly we can call it as a succession. So see here, it is the study and gradual change in a species of a given area with respect to the changing environment. So you have to understand, do you think one species or one plant community or one species community can be replaced by the another species community immediately? No. Friends, succession means it takes a greater time. See, because replacing one community with the another community, it never happens in very less span of time. Because all the species has to be habituated, all the species has to be adjusted, then only one species can be replaced by the another community. Everyone, please kindly look into this particular picture. See friends, through these pictures we can define the succession very easily. You only try to understand what is the definition just now I have given. Gradual replacement. Gradual replacement of one community with the another community. That is what exactly I defined as a succession. Friends, let's take an example of a glaciers. An example. Glaciers basically consist of what? Glaciers basically consist of ice. Except ice. Good evening, Lakshmi. Continue. In case of glaciers, nothing is present except ice. We all know very well, there is no doubt about it. Now all of you keep on listening my particular statements. Now after few years the ice starts melting and basically it forms a soil. I will explain in the primary succession. So see here, one community can be replaced by other, one community can be replaced by the other. So you only try to understand, we have started without soil, but we have built up an entire community. Now you only try to look into the second picture. This is what pure water. We have started with water. Good evening, Sama. Continue. But what we have developed a large community, very large community. So what I can say here, succession is what, friends? The gradual replacement of one community with the another community. That is what exactly we can call it as what? Succession. Friends, this particular succession is of two types. There are different types are there. The major types are what? Primary succession, secondary succession. I want all of you remember one particular word. When you heard the name of a primary succession, I am requesting all of you remember the definition whichever I am giving to you. Primary succession means development of a community. What, friends? Development of a community from an area where there is no soil. Sometimes in the exam, instead of using a word soil, what is the word they will use? They will use the word primitive substratum. So you can call the soil or you can call the primitive substratum. So always keep it in your mind. Development of a community, development of a species in an area where there is no soil, in an area where there is no primitive substratum. My friends, primitive substratum means starting compound or starting substance. That is only we call primitive substratum. What is the starting component? Obviously soil only. So friends, primary succession is a process which starts from an area initially there is no soil. What is the best example I can give for this particular primary succession? I can give a best example is glaciers. Now I am requesting all of you try to imagine how the glaciers looks like. You all know very well the glaciers completely filled with what? Ice. Except ice, glaciers do not contain anything. After 1,000 years, don't think that the glaciers break down within 100 years. No, it takes a greater time. The glaciers may break in 1,000 years. How the glaciers may break? You all know that because of lava. Friends, keep on understanding what I am talking right now very, very carefully. When the glaciers break down, immediately what is going to happen? That large ice can be broke down into smaller components. You can say that small rock-like structures. Now the point is very clear. How this particular rock, see, large ice components converted into rock-like structure. Now how this rock-like structures keep on breaking into smaller components? How the rock can break into smaller components? Every one of you has to listen with the help of lichens. The moment we heard the name of a lichens, one general statement we use it to remember. What is the general statement? Lichens are the species, they can grow without soil. And we commonly know that we use it to say that pollution indicator, and they can grow even though there is no soil. So ice means what? They are rocks, ice rocks, there is no soil. But what is the specialty of lichen? Lichen can easily grow in that particular area. You know what the lichens will do? Start breaking the ice into small pieces. Suppose example, lichens died. Then what happens? All of you keep it in your mind. Friends, listen. Even though lichens died, their dead organic matter, the dead organic matter of the lichens can break down into small pieces. That particular small pieces can give rise to the formation of withering. What do you mean by the word withering, friends? Withering means formation of soil. So you have to listen to me carefully. When the lichens died, the dead organic matter of lichens can start the process of withering, that is the formation of soil. Now every one of you look into the diagram. See here, it is completely a bare rock. Now friends, the bare rock starts breaking down into smaller pieces by the lichens. Now after few years, the lichens are replaced by small plants, grasses, perennials. Perennials means which are growing in a year. Now the perennials can be replaced by grasses. Then friends, grasses can be replaced by shrubs. Then finally you can see, my friends, what you can observe? You can observe the climax community. So what's the common point I want you people to remember here? is that we have started from what? We have started from an area where there is no soil. We have started from ice. But you can see here, we have built up a large climax community. So how can I define the word primary succession? Primary succession is a process of what? Converting a bare rock into a big community. In a simple way, the replacement of one community with the another community. That is what exactly, friends, we will be calling it as a primary succession. Now let's try to understand where the primary succession occurs. As I told you very clearly, friends, primary succession basically occurs in an area where there is no soil. So primary succession always begins at areas at the sites of volcanoes, landslides, as well as flooding and glaciers. In all these regions, the primary succession actually starts. Now look into the secondary succession. Friends, what's the common statement you have to remember? If you ask me, sir, what is the major differences between the primary succession and secondary succession, I can tell all of you the major difference between the primary and secondary is the substratum. What do you mean by the word substratum? I have already told to all of you. Substratum means starting component. What is substratum? Substratum is the starting component. Always keep it in your mind. So in case of a primary succession, there is no soil. Very simple. In case of primary succession, listen the definition. Succession always starts from an area where there is no primitive substratum. Succession starts from an area where there is no soil. Whereas secondary succession always starts from an area where there is a soil, where there is a primitive substratum, where there is a starting component. Always remember that. So all of you, please kindly look into the picture very carefully, friends. Secondary succession started from forest fire. All of you listen my statements carefully. There's a huge dense forest is there. There are huge number of trees are there. What happened? All of a sudden, very huge forest fire occurred. Because of the forest fire, entire trees present in that forest completely got burnt. No trees are left due to that particular forest fire. But friends, what's the unique statement all of you has to remember? Due to the forest fire, even though all the trees are burnt, which is not completely damaged. Friends, everyone listen, which is not completely damaged. The soil is not completely damaged. So soil means what I am saying repeatedly. It is this soil. Primitive substratum, starting component. So starting component is present. Starting component is not damaged. So that's why what you people has to remember. You have to remember, everyone pay attention towards this particular diagram, friends. After the forest fire, till 0 years or till 1 year, there is a no growth of plant. None of the plant was not grown at all, because soil was there but the soil got damaged. You all has to remember one unique statement, friends. Always remember, nature having its own recreational power. Nature having its own recreational power, it can easily build its entire community which is actually damaged. Now every one of you understand. So in 1 to 2 years, the annual plant starts developing. Annual plants means which can grow throughout the year. Then after 3 to 4 years, annual plants replaced by grasses. After 5 to 150 years, there is a development of shrubs, pine trees, young oak trees. Now finally, friends, there is a development of the climax community. So what's the definition I can give you in a simple way? That is, secondary succession always occurred in an area where there is a primitive substratum, where there is a starting component, whereas primary succession always start from an area where there is a no primitive substratum. So by this, you can tell me very clearly, if I ask you a question, which will take a longer time? Does the primary succession will take the longer time or the secondary succession will take the longer time? You can tell me answer very clearly. Obviously, primary succession only will take the longer time. Why you can tell like that? Because in primary succession there is a no soil. Friends, building up of a soil will take 100 to 1000 years. But whenever there is a presence of soil, we can build up the community faster. So keep it in your mind. Building up the soil is difficult, but once the soil is present, building up the community is not difficult. It takes a very lesser time. So that's why always keep it in your mind. Primary succession always take the greater time when compared to the secondary succession. Do not forget this particular point. Now all of you pay attention towards this particular diagram. Every one of you. So primary succession, secondary succession, we understand. I have given a very simple definition. Everyone look into this. It's a kind of a rigid topic, but you should require a great patience in understanding and answering the questions. Development of a plant community on barren area where there is no soil. Secondary succession occurring in an area where there is a soil is present. There is no doubt about it. Soil is present, friends, but the soil got disturbed. What is present? Soil is present, but the soil get completely disturbed. What do you mean by the disturbed? Example, I have taken a forest fire. Because of the forest fire, entire soil got all the plants got burnt, but there is a little damage to the soil. But there is a damage occurred to the soil, but it can recover very fast. Now you understand primary succession, secondary succession. Now I want all of you understand, friends, heterotrophic succession, autotrophic succession. Some people will get confused about this. Just pay attention, friends. Autotrophic succession further divided into autogenic succession as well as, friends, allogenic succession. So what are the basic and fundamental differences between the autogenic succession as well as the allogenic succession in a simple way? Now listen to me very carefully, friends. Heterotropic, you all know, right? Heterotropic succession is a type of succession which is occurring on the dead organic matter. Which is occurring what? On the dead organic matter. My friends, don't confuse with the statements. Keep it in your mind. Heterotropic succession will occur continuously. It occurs in such a way that until all the resources get completely exhausted, the process of heterotropic succession will be continuously taking place. So what you have to understand, in case of a heterotropic succession can be majorly mediated by the decomposers. What is the function of decomposers? They keep on degrading the organic matter. So you only try to understand what exactly I am saying. Till what extent they keep on degrading the decomposers, degrading the dead organic matter, until entire dead organic matter get exhausted. So till the completion of the dead organic matter, this particular decomposers start to do the process of succession. So that is what we call heterotropic succession. Now all of you look into this. What do you mean by the word autotropic succession? Just now in the heterotropic, I have reminded all of you that there is a which leads to complete degradation of the resources. Correct na? In case of heterotropic. But all of you look into the picture. In case of a autotropic succession, friends, it never ever, it does not lead to degradation. What, friends? It does not lead to the degradation. The habitat, all of you listen, look into the line. Habitat is continuously occupied or replaced by the living organisms. So which means the resources are not completely exhausted. It never ever lead to the species to become completely degraded. Anyway, I'll explain you. Look into this. There are two type of autotrophic successions are there, very important for the part B questions. Keep it in your mind. One we called, friends, allogenic succession. Another one, friends, we will be calling it as autogenic succession. I will explain one by one elaboratively, just pay attention. Friends, if you look into the allogenic succession, everyone, friends, pay attention. Don't get confused with this. One point is very clear. Allogenic succession belongs to what? Autotrophic. So allogenic belongs to the autotrophic, hence there is a no degradation. That's a common point. So friends, all of you listen. So instead of the degradation, what is happening exactly? There is a serial replacement. What, my friends? There is a serial replacement of one plant community with the another. Listen once again. There is a serial replacement of one community with the another community. It is driven, it is mediated, it is guided. Listen, it is driven or mediated or guided by what, friends? External geophysical processes. Always remember this point. Serial replacement of a species driven by changing external geophysical processes. Best example I can give you what? Every one of you look into the best example. Silt deposition. Silt means sand. Silt deposition changing what habitat to what habitat? Everyone try to understand. It is changing aquatic habitat completely to what, friends? Aquatic habitat completely to the terrestrial habitat. You only try to understand. I have shown you the first picture. Aquatic habitat, what, friends? It is completely composed of what? Water. Nothing else is there. Aquatic habitat means majorly is water. Now what we have done, we converted this entire aquatic habitat to what kind of habitat? Terrestrial habitat. How? How we have converted the aquatic habitat to the terrestrial habitat? By this silt deposition. Now you only try to understand. In the upcoming slides I will explain you. When abundant amount of the what we can say that soil development is occurring in the water body, obviously what happens? Water body converted into the either forest or the terrestrial ecosystem. Very simple. So this is what, friends? Allogenic succession. My friends, once again I am reminding to all of you, most of the people will get confused between the allogenic and autogenic. All of you, once again I am reminding to you, listen. Good evening, Pankaj, continue. In case of a allogenic succession, there is a no doubt replacement of the species occur. In the allogenic also replacement of the species occur. In the autogenic also replacement of the species occur. There is a no doubt about it. But in allogenic, how the species replacement occur? Because by external geographical agents. Best example what we have taken? Silt deposition. So friends, but when you take in case of a autogenic succession, what did I tell you? Autogenic succession also there is a change of species. Replacement of one species community with the another species community, there is no doubt about it. But how does this particular replacement is happening? All of you pay attention. Friends, that particular replacement is exclusively happening not because of the geographical condition. It is happening exclusively because of biological processes. What, friends? Why it is happening? It is happening exclusively because of biological processes. Now you can ask me, sir, what do you mean by the word biological process that are replacing the one community with the another community? You only take an example. We are organisms. When we grow, when we develop, at the same time after our growth and development we will die. Whenever we die, our dead organic matter can be decomposed by certain other organisms and those organisms starts developing. So what you can see, look into this. Organisms live, then they will die on bare rock and they will replaced by the another. Organism is living, organism is dying, and that organism replaced by the another organism. So what you have to understand, the change of species Of course, the replacement of one community by the another community exclusively mediated by the biological processes. Don't get confused with this particular statement. So what I want you to know here, in case of allogenic succession also replacement occurred. In case of autogenic succession also replacement occurred. But whether it is a allogenic or autogenic succession doesn't matter. Both where replacement is occur. In the allogenic replacement occur, that replacement can be stimulated by geophysical processes. Whereas in autogenic succession, replacement occurred by what, friends? Biological processes. Very, very simple. Now the last and final one is what, friends? Climax community. When the climax community will be developed, do you think the climax community will develop very immediately? No. When the climax community will be developed, once all the species, listen everyone, listen all of you carefully, when one plant community can be replaced by the another plant community continuously, and at final, whichever become mature, whichever becomes stable. Why I am using a word stable community? I am using a word stable community because, friends, beyond this level there is a no growth of the other organism. There is a no growth of other organism. That's why we will call it as a stable community, because you might see in the forest there is a very tall plants will grow, very, very tall plants will grow. You can understand beyond that tall plants there is a no other plants will grow. So they become mature, they become stable, they can withstand for the longer time. That is what we can call the climax community. Now you can ask me a question. Why you are saying these species only climax community? The reason behind that, they can use maximum amount of the resources. You can say water from the soil, you can say light from the sun. They will only use the maximum resources. That's why only whatever the other species are there that can grow only below that climax species, which never grow above that particular climax species. So climax species means always stable. You can say that is the final stage. No other stage is present after the climax community. So always remember, if you look into the climax community very clearly, all of you look into this, there is a forest climax. It's a complete climax. You can see grassland. When the grasses starts developing, they are very, 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 very small. Now see here, complete grassland. Now desert climax community. Friends, you all know, right? If you look into the desert community, what is the common point that you can remember? In the desert, it is completely sand. Nothing else is present. Now you see here, there are huge number of desert plants are present. There are huge number of desert animals also present. That is what exactly we can call the desert communities. Then the last and final one is what? Coral reef. We all know very well, friends, coral reefs, we have given a separate ecosystem actually. Completely separate ecosystem, because coral reefs are not present everywhere. Coral reefs are only present at particular areas. I told you now, what are the areas where the coral reefs are present? Estuaries, mud flat, sea coast. These areas only, this particular coral reefs are present. That's why we have given coral reef as a separate ecosystem. Good evening, Sumaya. How are you? So we humans. No, dear, we cannot say. But there is a no evidence, right, dear? That's a good question, Aishwarya. But there is a no evidence, na? There is a no evidence that we are only the climax species. Correct, na? We don't know whether there is another species is existing or not. So still the research is progressing. I can tell you what your point is valid, but there is no proof. There is no experimental proof to prove that we are only the climax species or we are the ultimate species. We don't know whether any other species is existing or not. Still the research is progressing. If we prove that there is no other species is existing, then we can conclude that humans are the climax species. That's a simple statement. Okay. Now, What are the various threats to the climax species? Sorry, climax community. You only tell me. It takes, friends, understand, it takes nearly 150, continue Sumaya, 150 to 250 years to build up a forest. But you only try to understand with a simple forest fire, whatever the forest that is built up on 150 to 250 years, that entire forest got burnt. So what I can say, forest fire is one of the major reason for the, or it acts as a big threat to the climax community. And what we people are doing, we are just cutting the forest and we are building the cities and roads. So those are also what a threat to the climax community. So friends, not only human intervention, listen my statements, not only, good evening Rachuri, not only human threats, even natural disasters or the natural calamities like flooding, volcanic eruption, they will also can act as a threat to the climax community. Always remember that. So friends, so far what we people have discussed. So far we have discussed what we have discussed, friends. I'm sorry. So far we have discussed very clearly what is a succession, what is primary succession, secondary succession, heterotrophic succession, autotrophic succession, and what are the two type of the autotrophic succession also we people read. Now the most important, what we have to concentrate. So if we don't get the questions from here, there are only two ways are there. What is that? You can get the questions from the mechanism or process of succession, one way. Second one, we can get the question from the models of succession. As I already told you, there were 4 times question asked in the succession. 2 times the question was asked from the models of succession only. A very easy. We're gonna read it now. If not, there is only one way that where we can expect the questions or examples. Friends, these are all the only 3 ways that we can expect the questions. So right now we completed what? Types of succession. Now let's talk about the most important one, process of succession. I will explain in a very simple way. Okay, here you no need to remember anything. In order to understand the process of succession, you have to understand, you have to understand the whole concept. You don't need to remember anything, nothing to remember. In this topic I am talking about, in the mechanism or process, you have to understand, focus. Very simple. In the process of succession, there are majorly 7 stages are involved. One we called nudation, one we called invasion, another one we called yesis, we called aggregation, competition, reaction, stabilization. Friends, I will tell to all of you in a very easy way, focus. What we read about the succession? We read about the succession means whatever the species, always remember, whatever the species that start the succession, what we always call it as, we will be called them as a pioneer species. Pioneer species are those species which can start the process of succession. And what is the type of species that can end the succession? That also we read. The species which can end the succession, we will be calling it as climax species. Very important one. It is what? One is pioneer species, another one is what, friends? Climax species. Very simple point. Now, how, everyone listen, how a pioneer species giving rise to the climax species, that we can understand by all these 7 steps. That's what we can call it as mechanism or the process of succession. Let me explain you in an elaborative way, focus. So friends, first point, please listen to me very carefully. If you listen me only, you can understand, okay? If you read, you can't understand that, okay? Try to understand the given concept. What do you mean by the nudation? I can tell you in one line, the starting of succession. the starting of succession we called nudation. My friends, the starting always occur with a sudden change. Everyone listen my statement once again. I am reminding to you, the process of succession always start with a sudden change. Let's take an example. Let's take an example of glaciers. What the glaciers contain? Full of ice. Nothing else is present. Now, in this full of ice, all of a sudden lava occur. Because of lava, what happened? Rock will form. The ice starts melting. When the ice starts melting, it gives rise to the formation of a rock. Correct, na? So, what do you have to understand? The starting of succession from a bare area. What do you mean by the bare area where there is no soil? Starting of succession we call nudation. Very simple point. Now, look into this. Innovation. So, who will start the succession? What do you mean by the word starting succession? Starting succession means here development of a soil. That is only we can call it a starting of the succession. Who will develop the soil? As we discussed very clearly, friends, pioneer species are the one which is going to start this particular succession. Friends, if the pioneer species want to start the process of succession, first they have to invade. You please keep on listening my statements. What do you mean by the word innovation? Innovation means entering into the new area. That is what do we call migration. Invasion we can call migration and assist. Don't get confused. I am only pioneer species like lichen. I am a lichen. I am a lichen. What is my goal? My goal is start the process of succession. If I want to start the process of succession, all of you listen to me. If I want to start the process of succession, first I have to enter into that particular area. Is it or not? Yes. So that is what do we call migration. Okay, now every one of you listen to me. Once I entered into that area, do you think immediately I'll start the process of succession? That never happens. Why? Because friends, I have to adjust to the environment over there. I have to habituate to the environment over there. That's why what we have to do, first I will adjust over there. Once after I adjust, immediately what happens, friends? I starts growing. See, listen once again. Nudation means starting of the succession. Always succession starts from a bare area by a sudden change. So friends, all of you keep it in your mind that the sudden change, it may be because of the physiographic regions also, it may be because of external agents also, it may be because of the biological agents also. First step is nudation, starting. Second step, invasion. Because I am a lichen, I want to start the succession. That's why I am from here, I am moving into an area where I want to start the succession. When I enter into the area where I want to start the succession, do you think I can start the succession immediately? No. First, I have to habituate. I have to adjust to that particular environmental condition. That is what do we call assess. Now listen, I have adjusted. I have adjusted and habituated to that particular given environment. Now I am ready to grow. Now I am ready to grow and I am ready to develop. As a result, what happened? My number starts increasing. That is what we call aggregation. Very, very simple. Now you only try to understand, when the species are keep on increasing, what is happening? Obviously, there is a competition to the resources, because species becoming more, resources are limited. Obviously, what is happening? There will be a competition. So whenever there is a competition occurs, every single species starts showing its competing ability. There is a competition occur between me and another species. Now we both are showing our competition abilities, competing abilities. Now that is what do we call reaction. Now whichever finally win in that particular competition, friends, that is what we called as a stabilizing species. That's what we called a climax species. A very, very simple process. Now once again listen, I'll summarize in a little more simple way. The process of succession basically takes place in a 7 steps. One we call nudation, innovation, assess, aggregation, competition, reaction, stabilization. So what's the statements you have to remember here? What do you mean by the word nudation here? Nudation means starting. Starting of the succession we call nudation. The process of succession can be started by any manner. It may be geographical region, it may be a geographical condition, or it may be biological agents. Anyone can start the succession. After the succession will start, a particular species will get migrated. That is the one who will initiate the succession. So first they will invade, then after invade, first they will get habituated, they will adjust. Once they will adjust, then only they start the succession. That adjusting or habituation only we called SS. Later they will get aggregated. What do you mean by the aggregated? Aggregated, once they completely habituated to that particular new environment, they start developing their number, which leads to what? Competition. Because number is increasing more, resources becoming limited, which leads to competition. In the competition, whichever shows the best competing skill, that will only survive. That will become stabilized, or the climax community. So friends, this is what exactly we call the process of succession. You don't believe in the 2-marker question, they will give all the 7 steps in 4 options. In 3 steps, A, B, C, they will give all these 7 in a wrong direction, and they will give one option as a correct direction. So even that kind of questions also we can easily expect in our succession. So you have to remember those also. So everything I have written step by step also for your reference. You can read it, whichever I have explained to you right now. Now friends, the most important one, where we are expecting the questions actually, that is only what friends? That is the models of the succession. So far in a given 3 times, how they asked questions is, in 3 times they have given the diagrams and they have asked questions. I will tell you in a very simple way. Listen to me, very simple. And if you get the question, if you know the concept, you can answer it very clearly. Undoubtedly you will get either a part B or a part C question very shortly. If you get, you will make it right very easily. It's a very easy actually. Now there are, to understand the mechanism of succession, there are 3 models were proposed by the Cornell and Slatier. Cornell and Slatier are the scientist or the ecologist who proposed the models for succession. Listen to me very carefully, all of you friends. What are the 3 models of the succession? I'll tell you in a simple way. Listen. One we called facilitation model, another one we called inhibition model, the third one we called friends tolerance model. What do you understand by these 3 models actually? Listen to me. According to the facilitation model, everyone look into the line. Early species can establish more, whereas when compared to the early species, later or last species, or I can say that late successional species, they establish more. All of you look into the picture very carefully. According to the facilitation model, everyone listen my statements. All the early species, they grow, they develop very well. But friends, when compared to the early species, the late successional species, they grow, they develop more when compared to the early successional species. So facilitation model basically explaining us that environment is less suitable for the early species, but when compared to the early species, environment is more suitable for the late successional species. That's what do we call facilitation model. Now you can see another model we call as inhibition model. What I have written, early species actively inhibit the later species. I can tell you in a simple way. I told you now, Aishwarya, reaction means dear, there is a competition occur between the 2 species. So I am showing my competing ability, you are also showing your competing ability. So that competing ability to win, that is what we call reaction. So in the reaction, whomever show the better reaction, they will become final winner. That is only we call climax community. You got it? Now listen to me everyone carefully. What do you mean by the word inhibition model? Friends, according to the inhibition model, always remember my statements. One species never ever allow the other species to grow and develop. Once again listen, according to the inhibition model, one species never ever allow the growth and development of the another species. That is what do we call inhibition model. Always remember that point. Now you only look into this. A compete with B, A compete with D, D compete with A, B compete with C, A compete with C, A compete with D, B compete with D, B compete with C, C compete with D, D compete with C, D compete with A, D also compete with B. In a simple way, what I can conclude here, suppose example, see here, species A can compete with BDC. Species D can compete with CBA. Species C can compete with ABD. Species B can compete with ACD. What do you mean by that? One species trying to inhibit the growth and development of the other species. That is what, my friends, we will be calling it as a inhibition model. That's a very simple and most important. Now the last one is the tolerance model. Friends, please kindly don't confuse between the facilitation model and tolerance model. All of you listen my statements carefully. According to the facilitation model, what did I tell you? Early species can grow. But when listen once again. What did I tell you according to the facilitation model? According to the facilitation model, early species can grow. But when compared to the early species, late successional species will grow more. But when you look into the tolerance model, all of you listen my statements. According to the tolerance model, early species will grow. There is a no doubt. Early species can grow. But when compared to the early species, what about the later species? Later species will grow, develop. It depends on whether they can tolerate to the environment or not. Very simple statement, right? If the later species, if they can tolerate to the environmental condition, if they can adjust to the environmental condition, they can grow. If they are not tolerating to the environmental condition, if they are not adjusting to the environmental condition, they cannot grow. They cannot develop at all. That's what we call tolerance model. I'm summarizing three models, friends. Pay attention. Look into the diagrams. First one, facilitation model. According to the facilitation model, early species, all of you listen, early species can grow and develop very well. When compared to the early species, late successional species grow and develop more. What is second model? Inhibition model. According to the inhibition model, one species growth can be inhibited by the another species. And what is tolerance model? All of you listen. According to the tolerance model, early species can grow and develop. What about the late successional species? If they want to grow or develop, it depends on whether they are tolerating to the environmental conditions or not. If they tolerate to the given environmental condition, they can grow. If they do not tolerate to the environmental condition, they cannot grow. Such a simple step it is. That is facilitation, inhibition, as well as the tolerance models. That's good question, Sumaya. It depends on, dear, in the inhibition model, whichever shows the highest competing ability, only that will survive. See, if there is a competition occur between four species, among four, one has shown better competing ability, one has defeat all, then that will become survive. That will survive. Remaining all three species will be exist. Simple point. You got it? So friends, right now what we have studied, right now we understand what is succession. We understand what is primary succession, we understand what is secondary succession. we understand what is heterotrophic succession, we understand what is autotrophic succession. In the autotrophic succession, we read further two models, allogenic and autogenic. Sorry, allogenic and another one is what we can call allogenic, and we read another model. And now what we gonna read? Very important one. From here you can get the part B also, part C also. These are also very important, friends. You can get directly definition based questions also, statement based questions also. So listen, what are those? The types of plant succession: hydrosear, mesosear, xerosear, lithosear, halosear, zamosear. I am requesting all of you friends, remember every single succession here. Hydrosear, hydro water, sear succession. The succession which takes place in the water body, we call hydrosear. Simple point. The succession which starts in the moisture condition, in the wet condition, we call mesosear. The succession which exactly start on the dry area, with a dry area or the area where the minimal water is present, very minimal water, we call xerosear. Whichever started in the moisture condition, we call mesosear. Whichever started at the high water condition, we will be calling it as a hydrosear. Now my friends, the mesosear, what did I tell you about the mesosear? I have told you that where the moisture conditions are present. The mesosear, please listen friends, further divided into three types: lithosear, halosear, zamosear. The moment you heard the name of zamosear, what is the point you have to remember? The succession which takes place on the sand. The moment you heard the lithosear, what you have to remember? The succession which is taking place on the bare rock. Now halosear, what do you understand? The succession which is taking place on the saline water. The succession takes place on the saline water. Please remember, these are all important for part B. Autogenic, correct Lakshmi. So halosear is what? In the saline water. Zamosear is on the sand. Lithosear on the barren rock. Please kindly don't forget all this. Friends, you people no need to remember every stage what is happening. But what I want you people to remember, see, we are studying about the hydrosear. In this hydrosear, what are the stages are there? This is the same question you can get in the exam. What is hydrosear? Hydro water. Sear succession or development of a community. So the development of a community or succession which occur in the water, we call hydrosear. Correct na? Now what is happening? Every one of you look into the diagram. What is there? Water. Except water, nothing is present. Now you see here, we have developed an entire community. A huge community we developed. What are the starting stages? Phytoplankton, submerged stage, floating stage, reed swamp stage, marsh meadow stage, shrub stage, forest stage. Friends, in a given 4-marker question, what kind of examples we will get? They can give all these stages in 4 options. They can ask us arrange in a proper order. If not, to make the question little more difficult, what they will do, instead of giving this particular stages, they will give the examples. But mostly they won't ask the example, but we should not take the chance. There is a chance that examples also can ask. So remember the stages, then example. I have kept in the PPT very clearly. Remember the stages, example. Stages, example. You people no need to read in terms of exam. I am talking to you in terms of knowledge. You have to know. You have to know what are the stages, example. You no need to know what is happening inside. How a phytoplankton stays converted into submerged. In the plus classes I used to tell to all of you. Now it's not needed. It's a time for revision. So what you have to remember? remember the stages example. Stages example. This is for hydrosier. I have given the entire explanation for everything. I am requesting all of you only focus on example. Don't focus on anything. Same thing. This is for hydrosier. We also kept for what, friends? Lithosier. So lithosier also, what are the various stages? Crustose stage, folio stage, moss, herb, shrub, forest. Here also I want you people to remember example. I am requesting all of you friends, remember 2 examples compulsory. Because if you remember only 1 example, it's very difficult. Okay, you don't need to go anywhere and read the example. In every single slide I kept the example. You have to remember the example whichever I kept in the slides. That's more than sufficient. Okay, that is about the process of succession. Okay, it seems to be rigid topic, but I'm requesting all of you not to neglect this. Okay, so friends, that is about the succession. Is it clear? I hope it's clear for everyone. That's all for now. And madam is gonna take tomorrow. Most of the people are feeling difficulty in the linkage and mapping from the genetics. So she's gonna take a linkage and mapping problems tomorrow. So please kindly attend that linkage and mapping and learn it. Then in the day after tomorrow, once again we will start with the we will start with the Lotka-Volterra model, which is very important. More than 5 to 6 times, which was asked in the part C question. So in the day after tomorrow, once again I'll come. Tomorrow madam will explain the linkage and mapping problems. Okay. Okay friends, that's all for now. I hope the discussion is little useful to all of you. I'll see you in the next class. Okay. Thank you all of you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you all.